Merch, can you please set up our guest?
Yes, we are being joined now by, well, he just recently ran for Congress. We just actually played a really great clip of him recently. He's the guy that we need to
the moment we saw CNN do a hit piece on him, we're like, who is this gentleman?
Yeah, who's this guy, and why is he so cool and based? So, Anthony Sabatini joining us live.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Good to see you guys. Yeah, it's still serving in the Florida House, ran for Congress. Kevin McCarthy, who's a horrible cuck, dropped $1.5 million against me 2 weeks ago. So that was to be expected, and then we lost the race last night. But we got big plans for next year, and I'm still finishing my state house term.
Right.
I'll be done in the state house in about 2.5 months. So hopefully we get some interesting things happening before I finish that up.
Yeah, but remember what Liz Cheney said. You know who else lost an election? Abraham Lincoln. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you're in great company, you know.
She's just like him. So
yeah, she's exactly like him.
In that she wants to continuously expand federal powers and crush the states.
She has no shame.
No, she really doesn't. And honestly, she really should, right?
Well, I mean, when you're Dick Cheney's daughter, right? It's hard to grow up with any shame.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, my dad may not be
was
a war criminal.
Like, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. But man, no, what are you gonna do, man? Shit fucking happens. And honestly, here's the truth of the matter is, when you have CNN doing a hit piece on you, that only means that you're doing something. Like, I always look at it that way. Whenever CNN's like, that's where we're like, wait, so this guy's saying what? Abolish the FBI? We've been saying that too. Yeah. And it's like they act like it's a radical position. The people that just said defund the police are saying it's a radical position.
Yeah, of course. A lot of the most common sense stuff we have to do, the most obvious stuff, seems radical. And the reason it seems radical is because our elected class of Republican leaders are generally cowards and they're afraid to talk about it. And so because they're so cowardly, it makes the position seem more radical. So it's this big contradiction. It's like, okay, here's what needs to happen. Here's the best thing to happen. But because our elected class won't talk about it, it becomes more rare. You hear about it more rarely. It seems more radical, even though it's not radical. It's just obvious and something that we need to do. So, and it's right in two different ways. So, like, one, it's right in the immediate moment in the sense that we have this horrible threat of this ever expanding, unaccountable federal so-called law enforcement agency that's now like haunting us, whether it be J6, now the former president of the United States, various ways. But also, like, just the old school conservative argument of why did we have a giant federal law enforcement? Why not have state attorneys general have compacts together where they stop interstate crime? So it's so obvious on so many levels that this is what we should be doing. Yet how many Republicans do we have talking about it, right? They had to come find a state representative in Florida to interview because other than Marjorie, there's only a few Republicans even talking about it in the elected ranks. So that's why they came and found me. It's just sad that we don't have more Republicans who aren't willing to say what's obvious.
Well, I want to. They call me Silver Linings Mersh here, so I want to look on the bright side. At least we have brave Republican leaders out there fighting the good fight, like Lindsey Graham and Dan Crenshaw, and I think that they're really just out there just doing God's work, like ordering people to shoot protesters outside, or saying on national television that we should assassinate the democratically elected leader of a nuclear superpower. Just run of the mill stuff.
But it's funny, you hear all that, but you're the radical one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, we need to assassinate Putin. And you're like, I just think maybe we should scale back all these illegal investigations. And they're like, whoa, crazy man. Relax.
Exactly. Yeah, Lindsey Graham can say whatever he wants because as long as he is playing into the prejudices of the oldest part of our electorate who doesn't really understand what time it is, it's okay, no matter how insane. I can't even tell you how many people I've talked to who are like, we need to go to war during the campaign. We need to go to war with Russia. We got to push back on Russia. We need to bomb the hell out of them and invade, go into Ukraine tomorrow. Like this part of the Republican Party does exist, and it's totally insane and radical, but somewhat popular, I guess. I don't know. It plays into the prejudices of this anti-communist, anti-Soviet, I should say, mentality that still exists, right? They still think it's like the 80s or the 60s.
The Red Scare. They think it's the Red Scare. I
They
mean,
still do. So it's considered normal, even though what they're saying is totally insane and radical. It's normal in the sense of there's like a weird consensus for it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think the problem is that what we're finding out is at least this is what we always say on the show, is that a lot of these Republicans, Democrats are doing something not even borderline, in my opinion, doing some just straight up illegal things, right? Like just absolutely doing that. And whenever Republicans get power, at least it seems like, at least since 9/11 2001, whenever Republicans get power, they don't do anything. Like there's no teeth. There's some, don't get me wrong, there are some that are out there that are fighting and screaming and fuck, Rand Paul's yelling at Fauci. At least someone's saying something.
You got Hawley.
Yeah.
You got that old dude Kennedy, who I love.
Oh, Kennedy's hilarious. But
that guy rules.
But my point is like, I don't want another Mitch McConnell. The point is, even if there's this huge red wave that they say is going to come, I think every person who's ever seen this party is going like, but if there's more Crenshaws and McConnells, like, what are we doing? They want to give more money to Ukraine too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the future of the country is the soul. The battle for the soul of the country is still the Civil War in the Republican Party. It's the primary of the Republican Party. And, 25% of people will show up for it. But that is literally the election that determines where the whole country goes. The direction of the Republican Party, the resistance, right? The group of people who want to actually try to put the country in a different direction than where it's been going for 50 years. That's why it's so important. And that's why this, that's where our attention needs to be, is getting good guys elected. And, you look at guys like Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, a majority of the Senate, but even probably half the House, McCarthy type guys. It's sad that they're not being primaried more often, and we replace them with more MAGA candidates who actually understand like what we need to be doing right now in the country. And that's my whole purpose. That's my whole focus, is getting people spirited, engaged in these Republican primaries at every level of government so we can get stronger fighters in. If we go to the November election with a loser and empty suit establishment Republican, then it doesn't matter if he wins or not, because he's just going to cave on everything. It's just, we'll lose more slowly, but we'll still lose. We got to get people who are actually going to fight hard and push offense when it comes to policy. Well, Republicans keep thinking if you play really, really, really good defense, they mix it up for offense. It's just not.
Yeah, defense is great, but it doesn't get anything done, and that's the problem. It's like. It's like covering up a paper cut when the entire thing has cancer. It's like, I mean, that takes care of the paper cut, but there's a bigger problem going on. And I think the bigger issue is that I think now we're seeing a breaking point. I think we're seeing the new Republican Party is little by little breaking out of the shell from the old Patriot Act, neocon, put a boot in your ass kind of, stuff. And they're kind of more turning into like, no, this isn't about having an American flag in your car and even anything like that. This is about a fundamental destruction of a country, and it's being done right in your eyes. And then when we go, okay, Republicans are in charge, what are you going to do? A lot of times you're like, well, you know how they said they were going to pass a $8 trillion spending bill? We got it down to 7.6. I'm like, okay, that sucks though.
Yeah, it does feel like at times the country I grew up in is just being dismantled and like just sold for parts. You know what I mean? It's like when it's like a junkyard getting a totaled car and you're just watching them pull all the catalytic converter out. And, you know what I mean? And you're going, no, it's just not going to be a car anymore, I guess. We're just going to sell just a bunch of metal. But, I mean, these dudes that are in charge, especially the establishment Republicans, what gets me about them is they would rather hold on to their jobs than win. Like, they'd rather hold on to their jobs than make America a better place. They don't want to concede their positions.
The thing that always happens and that dictates whatever the policy is, no matter what action in government is, the thing that dictates it is, Congress at some point, if it wants to stop the bad things that are happening, basically has to stop spending as much on whatever the bad thing is. And then that threatens a government shutdown. And because we have cowards in the Republican office who under no circumstance would ever get caught in the scenario of having to shut the government down because they think they'll lose in November, they therefore will do nothing in the meantime. It's the opposite of what the Democrats do, right? Because they'll just continue to fund tyranny all day long, knowing the Republicans will actually vote for it. But at the heart of it, so the Democrats know that they're always going to lose power like the next cycle, but they just need to run the ball down the field as fast as they possibly can while they still have power, lose power, and then get back and run the ball down the field again. They don't mind losing political power because they know when the Republicans get the ball, they'll just hold on to it and play defense the entire time. So it's a cycle. Like right now, Kevin McCarthy, when he takes over as Speaker, God forbid he wins, he's going to push a really safe, defensive, compromised agenda, hoping that makes the Republicans look more appealing going into 24, instead of actually just using the power that he has. To hell with it, just deliver on some policy victories and use the power when you have it. But this is like auto repeat for like 50 years, like compromise when we have power, hoping that we get awarded the next cycle. It never works out that way. 2016 to 2018, we played defense the whole time against the Democrats, even though we had all three branches of government. They still took over anyways. So we just need leaders who have courage and understand this like repeating phenomenon within the Republican Party. And McCarthy's just not that guy.
Well, I mean, I agree with you, and I also believe the other side. The other thing of that is like a great example of that is when the Republicans had the House and they had the Senate. It's like, okay, we're going to build the wall, right? We're building the wall, right? And I remember, Mitch McConnell being like, "Oh, Donald Trump doesn't know how slowly it works up here, unless it's $18 billion for Ukraine." Then all of a sudden, that stuff gets fast tracked right through. And then
how much was our wall supposed to cost that we couldn't afford?
It was like 3 or 4 billion.
And they were like, we can't come up with that kind of money. You know what I mean? And then like Biden gets in and he's like, oh, I'm just going to print a couple trillion. And you're like, wait, with a T?
Like 6 or 7 billion is the number somebody threw out recently when they were comparing the two.
That was, I think, my favorite excuse.
That money was out that day. In fact, actually, if you think about it, and this is somebody telling me this, I think it's true. Rand Paul tried to slow the whole thing down to say, okay, I know you guys are going to pass this anyways, but let's include a provision that allows us to at least track the money, get the Inspector General to track the money. And they're adamantly opposed to it. One of the reasons why they were adamantly opposed to it was some folks who've watched this space already thought that they basically had already sent the money, that they had already made commitments to send the money, and that making the Congress wait another week, there would have been a legal, technical, serious issue there because the money was already being sent. That's how fast the money was sent, that they couldn't even deliberate on the bill any longer because they needed to get these so-called arms and aid in the hands of the Ukrainian oligarchs. So, yeah, that's what was going on.
It's so funny seeing that, too, because it's not even how quickly, but it's funny how the left-wing media, like, somebody proposed the bill that, that the Congress should have 5 days to read a bill, which seems fair when it's 6,000 pages or whatever. And then they're like, can you believe they want to have 5 days to read a bill? I'm like, yeah, that'd be really nice if they read every page of something that's going to be law forever. But
look, if there's one thing I've learned from the Patriot Act is that you don't have to read every little bill that comes through. Sometimes you have lunch, you have lunch appointments and, dates you got to go on.
Okay, but here's the one good thing, and this is the best thing that I'll say. Why do you think out of all the 50 states, especially during COVID, Florida was so sheltered and stayed America as close as you could be America compared to the other 49 states? Because we live here. We're in Orlando.
Well, I think it all has to do with DeSantis. The legislature is no different from any state legislature. You got a couple of the freedom fighters like me who are more MAGA or hard right, like actually understand the stakes of what's at stake. You got some rhinos on the other side who are just horrible liberal and almost Democrats, right, pushing all types of liberal policies and stuff. Then you just got like a big fat happy middle that is just going to do what they're told, basically like cattle. And what made us different was we had a former member of the Freedom Caucus, a very principled, freedom believing congressman who happened to win the governorship here, mostly because Donald Trump endorsed him. That's why he won. And of course, that's Ron DeSantis, and he reshaped all the state's policies and done things that had his primary opponent, Adam Putnam, won. We'd be a totally different state right now. We wouldn't have had any of the strong anti-Fauci, anti-COVID tyranny response that we ended up with. It's all just because of DeSantis. That's it. Now, I was using my pulpit and doing everything I could to push the governor and to back the governor up to continue to be even more pro-offense on the COVID tyranny and all these different issues. whether it be the transgender agenda, the CRT, all of it. That's what I've tried to use my office for. But the truth is, it doesn't really matter because he kind of drew the policy, and the legislature was just along for the ride. And so, yeah, got to give him all the credit, pretty much.
But I do think that there is a change. We're just talking about it. We're friends actually with Alex Stein, and it's actually this.
Sorry, you dropped that name.
I'm sorry. You know, Jay Moore told
Prime
me.
time.
You know. Let me tell you something right now. I'm going to tell you something right now. This is important. Never name drop. Jay Moore told me that.
Yeah, I know. That's okay.
Anyway, no. The reason I was bringing that up is because there is this thing where things that used to be like, you said, like far right, and it's becoming mainstream now, right? I mean, objectively speaking, these ideas people over here are funnier. They're getting more stuff done. They're smarter. When you have Bill Maher having to apologize, now we're at the point of this. We're at the Orwellian point of the book where Bill Maher is apologizing for not being leftist enough. That's where we are now. And it's super weird because I think the days of the old liberal are gone, right?
Oh yeah, they're done. I mean, the old conservative's dead too, though. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they conserving? So I mean, it's the same thing on both sides.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, I don't know, we just gotta cut your kid's dick off. I guess everybody's like, I guess we'll.
And
just
then
do
everybody's
that.
fine, and
right,
everybody's fine. If like that, you saw the Gays Against Groomers just got kicked off for the third time on Twitter. Like, why you can't be against grooming? Like. It is unbelievable, and I will say the one lesson that I think people should learn from DeSantis is don't back down, don't ever back down.
I do find it odd though. Like, do you find it odd that like when you see how they just completely misrepresent everything? Like they've changed the meanings, but like we've literally changed the definition of like a dozen words in the past few years just to cover up for literal crimes, and now it's like everything takes on this weird opposite meaning of the original meaning of the word, and it's like up is down. I love that they called DeSantis like this tyrannical dictator fascist, and I'm like, he dismantled Disney's like private imperial districts. Yeah. He let people go to work and open up their beauty salons when other states were like, no, buy everything from Amazon and you're just going to have to eat, bugs and beans and stuff. That's just life now. And, all this stuff, like pretty much kept the beaches open, got business coming into Florida, all this stuff. And they're like, he is a fascist dictator. And I'm like, Ron DeSantis has not gotten in my way of doing anything I want to do in all the time he's been governor. Anything I feel like doing, not at one point in my life has Ron DeSantis been like, hold the brakes, buddy.
But why is this happening, or how could this possibly happen that they can just totally change the definition of words and then the sort of cattle random people who don't understand what's happening or just nodding their heads and going along for the ride? It's the complete and total disinterest Republicans have had in real education for K through 12. I mean, they almost never talked about education in a real way. Sometimes you hear Republicans gesture about, well, we're going to do a civics exam in the 12th grade. It'll be the American citizenship exam, and that's our civics initiative. It's like we have totally downplayed critical thinking and civics, like K through 12. Like we need to like drastically increase the amount of funding and necessary hours for like students to have for like critical thinking courses, language, and like government and civics, because the people that are going out into the world and then voting are not equipped to understand like what's happening. Like they do not realize that the media is basically just fooling them into thinking that, Ron DeSantis is a tyrant, whatever else. We don't educate people to the degree in which we need to when it comes to civics and just general critical thinking. That's something we really need to get serious about, like now, like right now. Like we need to go to, in my opinion, either 100% school choice and get them out of the indoctrination factories, but at the exact same time working on like really, really working at better civics and history and critical thinking curriculum, because it's not working. I mean, man, I got to tell you, like you go talk to the average person coming out of public schools and they're just not, they don't get it. They're barely voting. And we just really, really at the state level, so much of what needs to happen is stuff at the state level. Like I ran for Congress because if I didn't run, there was what happened, and it was what I was most fearful of, which is like a total rhino would just win and then go up there, be an empty suit, and just not fight for a strong Republican Party. Instead, they would just kind of be a backbencher and just sit there and parrot whatever Kevin McCarthy says.
But enough of Rick Scott. Sorry, I had to. I had to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but I mean, but I have to say,
really, a lot of the best things that need to happen to save the country are things that need to happen at the state level. Like, I ran for Congress for that, but really, if you told me what are the top, I'm kind of a hypocrite, because if you said what are the top 5 things that need to happen like right now to save the country, they're mostly state level things. Like the CNN interview had to do with what the state of Florida could do to fight back against DOJ, which is severing ties, communication, task forces, inter-local funding agreements with DOJ and FBI, et cetera. In the education space, the feds almost have nothing to do with education. Yeah, there's a federal Department of Education. Yeah, we need to shut it down. But 99% of the funding of education is coming from the state already. And why are we allowing the left to like dictate it? Why aren't we making it like really based? Why aren't we making it really conservative education? Why are we not making better citizens? We're just fat, lazy. Yep. There's just too many fat, lazy grifters in the Republican Party who do not take the power that they're given seriously, not exercising in the right way. We need to have like conservative education. We're just not doing it.
That's a really good. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but it's by design. I mean, to be honest with you, everybody that's in power is basically just like fat, retarded person that wants us to. They want us all to be fat. They also want us to be stupid, and they want us to be unarmed. Like, those are the 3 like pillars of what our government wants. They want us fat, stupid, and unarmed. And probably on a various cocktail of
SSRIs,
of drugs also, and estrogen based foods to just keep us, chilling, hanging out, smoking weed all day.
Keep us docile.
That's what they want.
But they do, and it's funny because you're 100% right about. Another question: why do Democrats always? Why do they win? They control the education system. Those kids are being indoctrinated from day one all the way through college, and then they go to college, they drop out, and now we're saying it's okay that you didn't get a real job. We're going to forgive your loans now too, big guy. But the people that busted their ass to get an HVAC degree or a tech degree, screw them though. They don't get their money back.
No.
People that went to go liberal dance art studios degrees are getting their money back. And then there's people. Look at the numbers. A lot of people that are making the most money right now are only high school graduates, and that's a real thing. If you get the right job, there's some plumbers out there making more money than some big people, right? Yeah. If you know what you're doing and you're smart, and none of them they didn't get a break. The problem is if now you're incentivizing stupidity, right? So now we're going like, not only are you going to indoctrinate you, but guess what? It's on the house. So we are paying for our own downfall. We're paying our taxes to do that. And why they never fight back? They never fight back, and this is why. And they learned it, and they used it, and it's conservatives' fault. The last thing a conservative wants to be called is either racist or homophobic. Even if you're none of those things, they run from that word, and they don't, and again, that's why China's beating us, because you tell China, what you're doing is racist, will be like, yeah, we know, we don't care though, we do whatever we want here, and that's what's happening here. There's no fighting back, and I agree with school choices, and I even agree with homeschooling and stuff like that. But if you don't fundamentally fix what kids are being taught, if kids are being taught to say their pronouns and not why George Washington was awesome, we have a problem.
And that's the problem too. These kindergarten teachers are like shoehorning conversations about, like, that was the whole part of like the Parental Rights and Education Act was.
Some call it the Don't Say Gay bill.
Well, what about all my children that are asking me about my gay butt sex lifestyle? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure those kindergartners are not asking you about butt sex.
It's super weird.
They steer the conversation in a certain way. They're like, yeah, my partner.
Libs of TikTok exposed a lot of that stuff too.
Non-binary partner, wink, wink. It's like that episode of The Simpsons where they're trying to, Mr. Samson, and they're stepping on his foot.
Exactly.
And he's like, I think he's talking to you. Like, the kids aren't getting it. And then they're like, you see the libs of TikTok, some of them are like, I am so frustrated with these kindergartners. They're like Nazis. And you're like, no, they just don't care about butt sex. They just show them colors and letters and teach them cursive. This should be easy. When you're a kindergarten teacher, they're not even really learning much. Just give the kid a juice box halfway through the day, let him run around and tire himself out before he goes back to his parents, and give him books, some puzzles, and teach him socialization. That's all you have to. It's the easiest gig. And they're like, so anyway, I went paddleboarding with my gay boyfriend this weekend. And when we were oiling each other up, hey, listen, hey, put your pencil down. I'm talking about my gay trip to Fire Island. You're like, so somebody had to step up and go, hey, look, let's go back to juice boxes and workbooks. Let's go back juice boxes and workbooks. All right, let's keep it simple.
Well, one thing I want to bring up about this, and my response to that is this: we were talking about earlier the difference between offense and defense. So much of like the winning issue right now in the Republican Party that they think is like it has saved the country is still completely and totally rooted in defense. And what it is it's like we're going to keep critical race theory and transgender lessons out of the public schools, like parental rights. Like you can't jam this down the mind of a third grader. We're going to stop that from happening. I get that. We're going to do that. I mean, obviously we should do that. We did it here in Florida. I was very happy about it. Right. We did it for at least half the students. That bill should have went to the 12th grade, stopped in third grade, but whatever.
Agree with that.
That's still defense. That's still defense. Like that doesn't get us in a better position than we were. We're already creating libtards constantly who don't love the country and are going to go to the insane diploma mill, fake university factories and be taught to hate the country and continue to vote for a tyrannical party that wants us to be a globalist, lame nation. Like, so we need to go past the defense and actually like embrace, and it's impossible to get conservatives to do this, but we have to do it, or conservative leaders, that is, so-called conservatives. We have to get them to like actually believe in an education system that believe in affirmative ideals. Like not just, we're going to stop the CRT, but you have to get them to like actually teach what we think is right and good, like in the schools, like actually embrace what's right and good, which is patriotism and honor. Like, there was a controversy many years ago in the county I live in, Lake County, as you guys are from Orlando.
Claremont Brewing Company, baby. Whoop, whoop.
That's my state house district, by the way. That's the heart of my district.
I mean, I'm right outside.
Look,
man.
I'm not trying to knock Claremont, the fine city of Claremont and Orlando, but I'm a Tampa guy.
No, hey, you leave. I'm over here. I'm just south of where your district ends, actually.
But this is how far we've gone in the wrong direction. So, like in the '90s, there was a school board takeover. There was some liberal thing was pushed, and they took over the school board. Conservatives took over the school board in the mid '90s, and this was in the mid '90s. This is how far we've gone. There was a school board member that pushed to make it as part of the official curriculum that it would be taught in Lake County Public Schools that Western civilization was the greatest civilization, and that it was superior to other civilizations. And in the 90s, that was considered like wildly controversial and either failed on a vote or they passed it. I'm pretty sure they passed it. And then a bunch of school board members were thrown out. There was teacher unions, and Democrats still had very much influence in some of the more rural ex-urban areas back there, and they were thrown out. And that was like a wildly controversial. Like how far we've moved in the wrong direction since then is really immeasurable, I think. Like right now, if we're not willing to think that the civilization that has created all the world's greatest prosperity, Western civilization shouldn't be taught as a fact that Western civilization is the greatest civilization in the world and that America is the greatest country in the world, then we're doing a horrible job in our public education system. So we can sit here and like cope out and, you know, have the copium and believe that like stopping the CRT and transgenderism is like making us win again. But if we don't affirmatively believe and start promoting real ideals and teach young people to like love the country and be great citizens, we're still losing. We're just losing very slowly.
We're just patching a leak and not fixing the problem. No, I mean
that's it. Band-aid. And so like trying to get the Republicans to think differently about this and realize like losing really slow, it does not equate winning, is probably the thing I'm most focused on, the campaign trail and in office. Like just we need stronger leaders who actually are going to use the education system or anything in their power that they can affect and change to make better citizens who are conservative, like make conservative young people, like use force to do it, and they're not willing to do it.
I mean, but I would really hope that we're getting there, right? I mean, I would like to.
We're taking steps in the right direction. I mean, DeSantis also is pushing for like the financial literacy.
That was one of my. That's one of the
at
things.
At least, I mean, I know that's still not like hand over the heart and stand for the flag, but it's still a step in. Any level of like literacy.
Well, let me say one more thing about this idea of like creating formative, better, values-based education is going to create more conservative citizens at a young age. I would tell you that, and might sound like a hypocrite here, or like I'm undermining myself. I don't think that we're ever going to have the political power or will, at least not in the near future, to get it done within the public education system. So that's why I actually do advocate, although there's some flaws with it, because you don't have the control, a 100% school choice system like Arizona did. To show you how fat and lazy the state legislature is. Like over the last 6 years, we went from being the school choice leader to now being surpassed by Arizona, because Arizona has gone further and they went to 100% universal school choice. So any parent just gets like a $7,500 voucher, and as long as it's more like a coupon, but basically you can put your kid in any private education. I think this is the better way to go, because you're going to find that teachers are more willing, or parents are more willing to want to put their young person in a values-based, pro-citizenship, pro-patriotic, Christian education more than you ever would be able to get kids in a, thinking that way if you embrace just still a public model of education. So we need to go to the Arizona-based Arizona model of 100% private education, because you're going to get more kids in religious and values-based education that way. So that needs to happen like now. Like if I was governor of Florida, I would call an emergency special session right now and pass that bill, and do not let any kids go back into these liberal factories that we call K through 12 education in spring. Like get them all these coupons and let these new models of private education that's values-based erupt. Because right now, there's some private schools, but if you had 100% school choice, you're going to see like a tenfold increase in private education. And of course, it's going to be mostly values-based, because that's how a parent wants their kids to be. They want their kid in a school that has discipline and just a values-based. They don't want their kids in these public schools. They just don't know anything else.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, you mentioned if you were governor, all I'm saying is I got a really good feeling that in 2 years, our current governor is probably going to be packing some suitcases and probably, looking at some houses up north maybe for a little while. So I don't know. That might happen now. I do want to ask you, though, aren't you concerned a little bit about how bad the left has also infiltrated the church in many ways? Because that's been happening all over the country. I mean, absolutely. You have like trans, lesbian, Methodist like priests that are having like, we're going to have a drag show in the church. And you're like, whoa, dude, there was a time you'd be afraid that the ground was going to open up and swallow you for doing shit like this. So maybe we don't want to and I'm all for respecting marginalized communities. I'm trying to do this right.
Yeah,
okay?
Maybe you are.
Look, I'm a live and let live guy. You want to have your little, like I lived in Tampa for years. It's a pretty gay town. There's a lot of stuff going on. Cool, you got your club, you're doing your thing. I'm not against you having your thing. But like I'm the kind of guy that thinks people shouldn't be standing and blocking like Planned Parenthood and shaming people as they enter it. I also don't think people with blue shaved heads and girl penises should be storming into Catholic churches and screaming about abortion.
You mean like this?
Yeah. So I'm more of like, how about you do the thing over there? You guys have your thing, and then you guys have your thing. However, just don't bother each other. But it seems now that the church is more getting uncomfortably progressive in many ways.
Yeah, well, most of the mainline Protestant churches and evangelical churches and a lot of the non-denominational style churches have been getting increasingly more woke. But as that happens, people are leaving those churches and they're seeking out actual conservative, real Christian churches. And that's the sort of church that I believe in. But I also believe that parents, anything that gets them out of a purely, gets the kids out of a purely materialistic, atheistic, government, devoid of discipline, devoid of values, devoid of everything, education, getting them out of that and put into anything else, even if it is a slightly liberal Christian church, is better than the public schools, because the public schools have become, just by the nature of how they operate, I think deadening and in and just a weird way procedurally make more liberal, pro-government mentality students. They just do. I mean, it's just the way it works.
Yeah, they're built to look exactly like prisons. The food is exactly prison quality. And then you have 12 years of gambling that your kid's not going to end up getting molested, shot, beat up every week. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just too many things now that you're like, I think I want to go to a place that's like a little Catholic school where they maybe have like, 20 people in that grade level. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe a little better attention to detail. But yeah, that's just what my only concern is, that some of the more liberal, like modern churches, I just see a lot of stuff that I'm like, this is not what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of that out there, but I think giving the parents an option is better than what you have now, which is there's no option. They just go to these schools that are woke. The teachers are largely woke. They're coming out of the education colleges. They're already predisposed to be, liberals and mostly anti-American style, various variations of it, but generally anti-American, anti-Western style liberals. And that's where the kids go. That's just where they go. Unless you're wealthy, you can get them out and get them in another school. That's just the way it is. So we need to actually give parents an opportunity to get them in a school that shares their values. Like, conservative people should be able to, without paying more money, send their kid to a very pro-Christian, pro-America conservative school has discipline and focus on the great books and history and civics at no additional cost. I mean, that's just very much common sense to me, and we're not doing it. We're not doing it.
And it's Anthony, you brought up a really great point earlier, and this actually leads into it. It's like, you're right. Even when liberals lose power, if they control the education system, they never lose power, really. Even if the House and the Senate and everybody and more governors, it doesn't matter if the factories that are really producing more of these people are still functioning. Like, you could kill some ants in your house, but if you don't take care of the ant pile, it doesn't really matter. And I think that's the problem. I think that's why they're always so calm. I think, like I said, at the end of the day, the debt forgiveness and give all this money to Ukraine, and we're going to hire 87,000 IRS agents, and we're going to do everything. And Republicans are going to charge, like, yeah, we're not going to reverse any of that, but hey, slightly lower taxes.
Yeah. Who wants a tax cut?
And you're like, I guess, but I would rather be able to, I don't know.
Hey, the stock market's up, huh? Gas prices are down. You're like,
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, they still cut my kid's penis off.
Yeah, so
can we address that?
Yeah,
because I didn't even get a say. Like, the school didn't even call me.
Yeah, we're getting to that point too. And then they're gonna take, like what happened in Texas when they took that kid away from the father, because the father's like, I am not going to transition the kid, and the mom's like, yeah, you are, and the judge is like, then you're not going to see your kid, father. It's your daughter now, by the way. And it's like, Texas, we have a problem now,
Yeah.
And what do we do? And what do we do to
Texas?
So here's where we go, because we're coming up towards the end of the show here. But I will want to ask this: that's a lot of stuff that obviously big picture. What can people do now, day to day, to make it a little bit better? What do you think?
The single most, I mean, this might sound very stereotypical. It sounds very much like boilerplate advice, but I really do believe it's the single most important thing they can do. But it's to get really, really, really engaged in these Republican primaries at every level: school board, state house, state senate, county city commissions, especially city commissions now with the way it's going with the crime wave. You got to make sure you get real police departments in there, not woke police chiefs. Congress too, getting really, really, really involved in these Republican primaries and getting Republicans elected who understand the extent of power that they already have and who have a courage and willingness to use that power to further the good life and what we consider the things that we have to do to make America great again, right? Like, that's the most important thing that they can do. It's not showing up at the school board meeting and just yelling, right?
Yeah.
It's actually getting involved in the primary and helping elect the right person that's going to function as an effective, pro-offense, strong America-loving fighter in office, and like getting smart about it and realizing who the real ones are and who the grifters are. Voting on more than just a leaf letter or whatever. But that is the single most important thing they can do to save the country. Getting really intimately involved in these Republican primaries and getting smart, strong people like that and recruiting them and maybe being the person that has to run. I always say I would never have run if I had a bunch of badass, strong, freedom-fighting Republicans who thought like I did running. I'd just be like, okay, you do that.
Right.
I'll go do something else. But they just didn't exist, and they don't exist. And so that's why I run, and that's why I'm going to run again for another position, because we're not going to get these people.
And this, I know that you tweeted out earlier that you have a big announcement coming in spring, so I wonder what that's going to be.
Yeah, see, we didn't link up in time. We didn't give you the big ROTC bump.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we would have put you over,
but we would have put you over the top next time. We're going to rule the world.
But that's funny because we do talk to a lot of, because our show is obviously everyone listens all over the planet. So sometimes,
including Nikki Fried, which is why she didn't come on our show, coward. Sorry,
Nikki Fried on Twitter was like, yeah, I'll do your show. I'm not scared. And then I message her and I'm like, okay, would you want to come on the show? Well, here's my representative. Then I'm like, okay, do you want to come on the show? And then they went radio silent. And then we find out
they did this thing. It's called watching our show.
And then they realized we're friendly with Alex Jones was the reply that we got.
But meanwhile, I'll give anybody a fair shake. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? We'll have you on. It's the same way. It's casual, as you can see. We don't have to agree with you about everything. We've had people on we disagree with.
Of course.
It's like, hey, come on, we'll shoot the shit. Maybe you'll come off a little more human to people. And it's like, no. You guys had Alex Jones on once. Oh, I guess we're just murderers then.
Yeah, so that's where that's basically but my point was, like, we tell a lot of people, it's funny because we're in Florida, so we know Charlie Chris, but it's like I always forget that the rest of the fucking country doesn't know Charlie Chris. Like, we know Chris here, like the flip-flopping guy he is, and I'm like, guys, you don't understand. This is Florida Biden. You haven't heard this guy talk yet. This guy's insane, and he flip-flops all over the place. At one point, he told the priest when he was a Republican, "I'll get rid of all abortion in Florida," and now he's like, "We kill every baby here," and I'm like, man, no middle ground anymore. We're just going full tilt the other way. So I mean, I do think that's funny. And I think a lot more people are paying attention to Florida, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Ever since the pandemic, but dude, absolutely running. I'm telling you, man. The one bright hope of everything is if CNN does a hit piece on you, you're saying something that matters and something that people care about. Because if not, they don't do hit pieces on people that are on a threat. They never do.
You're automatically okay in my book if CNN's going, how dare you, sir?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, okay, this guy's all right then. It's okay in my book.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed my 4 years in the House. I enjoyed my 2 years on the City Commission in Eustis. And, I enjoy what I'm going to be doing next. But campaigning is half the battle. You got to stay in the battle.
Yeah.
One thing I absolutely hate, and I have zero tolerance for, it just absolutely infuriates me, is when somebody loses a race and then they just disappear. They go away. And it makes me wonder, I'm like, what would they have been like in office if the thing that motivated them was their own perception or like emotional tie to this? Like, I don't know. It's something about it is very concerning to me that they would disappear from the political arena if they lost their race. I feel like they were motivated by the wrong reasons to get involved to begin with. So
it's like losing one game and then saying, well, I'm never playing football again. It's like, so then you never cared about football. You just never cared about football.
Tom Brady's lost Super Bowls, right? Yes. Like, I always say that. It's like, and then he won. It's like, it's okay. And I think you're right. I do think a lot of people just give up. I go, oh, well, I guess I'm done now.
I backed probably 10 or 12 candidates statewide, maybe 3 or 4 of them run like at different levels of politics, different offices. And I sufficiently, I think, successfully convinced at least 6 or 7 or 8 of them to just run again next year. I'm like, take what you just built and that energy and that team, and that fundraising apparatus and your name ID and everything, and put it right back in for either another office or a rematch or whatever, but do not walk away. Those are the worst people in the world. They freaking infuriate me.
Yeah.
You just look like that whiny kid that's like, I'm never going to play football again.
And you're like, yeah, well, people get hit, get up, and you keep. And I really believe that's I think that's 100% true. I think too many people just back off and quit. I mean, look, by the way, just again to show you how Republicans are different, you know who never quits? You know who keeps running over and over again? Terrible liberals. That's why they win. That's why Biden could run 5 times, and eventually, if you persist long enough,
all you have to do is live long enough, and you'll finally be president someday.
Yeah. And I wanted to point out, since we're on YouTube, the election, Biden really got 81 million votes.
Yes, there's zero
doubt
question
in
about
my
the election.
mind.
The integrity of our democratic process.
Yeah, they fortified it with pizza boxes and covered windows,
boxes.
and it's important. You'll get kicked off if you say anything else. So that's what just happened. I think Crowder just got kicked off because the Arizona senator came on and goes, the election, and I was like, well, they're going to kick you off now. So
I'm afraid of catching a strike every time I jokingly say, we're finding ballots, folks. I'm like, the algorithm's going to pick that up.
Yeah. But Anthony, man, thank you so much for coming on. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no, this was a lot of fun, and really, like, stay in touch with us, and like next time, like, hey, anything we can do to,
we're happy to help
out. We like to, love to help you out.
Get the right people in.
I like the cut of your jib.
It's our state, so it matters. This isn't an empty platitude. I live here, so it does matter to us.
Also, our man Anthony here was getting some love from Rand Paul. So
I saw that.
That's street cred right there.
They got the street cred. Yeah, the Eddie Bauer sweater best street cred. That matters. I love Rand Paul, by the way.
It's not Eddie Bauer. It's the what's that brand? Columbia.
Columbia.
He likes Columbia.
I like that. Man, thank you so much, Anthony. You can find him at Anthony Sabatini on Twitter, and anything else, any other website or people go check out your stuff?
Well, Sabatini for Congress is still up. Check it out if you want to see some of my policy positions. But I'm on every social media platform at Anthony Sabatini or Vote Sabatini, both handles on all major social media platforms, Gab, Getter, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Telegram, whatever you use.
And by the way, if you ask anybody, tell them that you're cool with at least one fat Cuban guy and one fat Irish guy over here. So you see, it's a small world over here. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time. I know it's valuable, so thank you so much for coming on. We do appreciate it.
This was awesome.
Thanks, guys. God bless. I'll be back on again.
Yes, sir. Awesome, dude. Take it easy.
Thank you.
See ya.
All right, Anthony Sabatini might be a little too based for these people.
I know.
This time around, but we're gonna.
He had great ideas too. Like, you can't even say he did it. He's great. So
it's funny, man. You could tell he's probably a hard guy to write hit pieces about because he's not like, let's be honest. There's some good people in Congress. I don't mind Marjorie Taylor Greene sometimes, but she's also, she can be a fucking clown. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? She'll just be a pair of clown shoes for no reason sometimes. But he's got that like. He's calm and cool, and he's not fucking, he's not fucking ranting and raving about, crazy shit, and that's what we need. So
go follow him. He's a great follow on Twitter, by the way. Very funny too.